I go to work, and as soon as I open the door, it's nothing but freaking drama. Where have you been? Why have you been answering? Da 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 da. She's like so upset because she is the one who had to fill in what I was doing. She wasn't used to cleaning, cooking, freaking wiping the baby's butt, laundry, whatever task that needed me to do, she wasn't used to doing. Hey beautiful, welcome back to my channel. And if you're new, hi, my name is Alexis Jayda and welcome to today's video. Today's notification shout out goes to Amber. Thank you so much for all your love and support. Te quiero mucho. Besos. Thank you so much for your comment. It really hit home with me. Thank you so much. If you guys want to be part of the notification squad, all you have to do is just thumbs up this video, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment when I go live, and you can possibly be the next notification shout out. So I asked you guys what I should dress up as, and a lot of you guys said Baltimore. So I was like, oh my god, that is perfect. Why? Because the bitch's name is Baltimore. When you guys said Baltimore, I was like, yes. What's up, you filthy mudbloods? Just kidding. I don't know, I'm freaking geeked, you guys. I'm so excited. So if you guys have been watching my story times, this is part of the Nanny series. I have a Nanny series and we are currently in this chapter right here. So if you're not up to date, I will leave the playlist down below. You will not regret it. So with my story times for the rest of the month, I am going to be getting dressed up. So please leave suggestions down below and yours could possibly be the next one. I'm excited. It's the second time I attempt, but yeah, this is 1 and 1 plus 1 equals 2. So this is the second time I have attempted. That's why it's already like painted. Let's just say I tried and it wasn't giving me what I wanted. So let me know what you guys are doing right now. If you guys are driving somewhere, let me know. If you guys are eating, what are you guys eating? I would love to know. If you are watching this with somebody, this is new. Who you watching with it? Woo. Okay, so I get called in. Sam's all up in my face like, oh my god, since you've been gone, I had to do this and had to do that, you know? And it really wasn't a lot. She just was used to not doing a damn thing. So it was kind of like hitting her a little bit hard to be like a normal child. She wasn't feeling it, okay? She didn't want any of it. So I get there. She's trying to, you know, catch me up on everything, pretty much feel bad for me. And I'm literally just letting her vent, getting ready, getting the motions of what I have to do, what I have to clean, all of that, kind of examining the room like, okay. And to be honest, it wasn't the cleanest. So I was already like, got my day already all planned out of what I'm gonna do. And in the back of my head, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna really have to do like the most because, you know, like I really did miss them in a weird, messed up way. I missed them. Even though they were toxic and they treated me like poop, I missed them. So I was already like thinking like, okay, I'm gonna do this, I'm going to clean that. And Sam is literally like still in my ear like, I'm just trying to just, okay, this, that, paying attention, seeing what the kids are doing, okay. And I'm like, oh dang, that's crazy, you know, listening to her. And I tell her, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta check in with Mrs. Peach, let her know I'm here. And she's like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. She's like, tell her I'm gonna be outside. I'm like, okay, don't really care, bye. So she goes outside, I'm walking upstairs and I can hear somebody kind of like complaining and yeah, and can you believe, and can you believe? And I'm like, it's either about me or about somebody else, so I can't believe what. So I'm already walking upstairs, already kind of dreading like, oh, here we go. Kind of getting those butterflies. Have you ever been gone away from work for quite some time or even school and you kind of get like those nervous guppies in your panza? Well, that's what I was getting. I was like, oh my gosh, here it comes. I walk in, she sees me and kind of just gives me this look of like, oh, not who she was expecting, you know? I don't know who she was expecting. So I look at her and I'm like, I'm here. I can see that. I have eyes. Okay. So right away, I'm like, okay, back to regular scheduling. Beach. I tell her like, okay, well, is there something that you want me to start off on? And I see that Baltimore. I'm gonna laugh every time I say it because how I'm dressing up as her. I see Baltimore on the side of the bed, you know, sitting, you know how you sit on your bed when you're like chismeando with like your cousin or your friend or, you know, and you're just like on the bed just chilling. Well, that was her, okay? So I could see her on the bed. So I seen her. I wasn't even like, oh, hi. No, nothing, because you fake. Didn't want to sit there and him haw with her. See guys, I tried to go all out for y'all. Like, I see that she's on the bed, don't even acknowledge her. And I'm like, is there a certain place you want me to start off first? And then she's like, you need me to tell you how to do your job? Now you don't know how? And I'm like, damn. So I look at her and I'm just kind of like, oh, okay. We're gonna be stupid and we're not gonna act like you apologized. And okay, so I just look at her and I'm like, and she's like, what are you still standing there for? And when she says that, Baltimore kind of like laughs, and I didn't find it funny because I'm getting annoyed because like this is how you're going to start off when I get here. Like this is the foot that we're gonna start. Okay. And so I stood there and she's like, why are you standing here? I'm like, because I need you to tell me what to start, or even if you want me here. Like, I don't know why you're so upset. Oh my gosh, Alexis, yeah, oh, like I can't. And so I'm telling her like, okay, si no puedes, if you can't, me voy. Like I'm leaving. And then she's like, oh, you're gonna start. And in Spanish, it sounds a lot harsher. I know it doesn't sound as harsh as I'm saying it, but it sounds a lot harsher. Like, believe me when I tell you, it sounds harsh. She shushes Baltimore out. She's like, yeah, vete, so I can talk to her. And she's like, okay, girl, and walks out, looking at me up and down like if I'm a problem, which I'm not. So I look at her too, like, okay, like, bye. So she's walking out the door and I'm asking her, like, do you even want me in? Like, the only reason why I came in is because you said you wanted me to come in. If it's too soon for me to be back, or even if you don't want me back, just tell me and I can just go and work for somebody else. When I said that, she says, like who? Bubbles? And I laughed inside because I'm like, oh, she's still salty about that. So I laugh inside and I'm like, whoever. That's what I said. Whoever. And then before I can even like catch my breath, she goes, or did you mess that up because you already slept with her son? And I was like, wait, what? Clenching my pearls. And I said, what? And so I made that face because there was no truth behind it. So me making that face kind of let her know too, like, what the fuck? And so she was like looking at my face. You know when someone's studying your face to see if you're lying or not? She was studying my face like, this was her, okay? Or not. Like studying my language, seeing my nips got hurt or something. And I'm just like if I really smell poop, because I'm like, you're tripping. Like, I give her that look and she's like, okay. And so she tells me that she's just having a really rough morning, that if I didn't already know that her and Mr. Peach are thinking of separating. And I don't know why I smiled. I shouldn't have. I smiled because I'm just like, ooh, because of all the crap that they talk about, everything. So it's just like, So I smiled and she got pissed. My bad. I shouldn't have. But she was so pissed that I smiled. And she asks me like, why are you smiling? And I tell her like, oh, like, I'm so sorry. Like, I'm just, I don't know. I guess I'm just like a little flustered. I don't know. It's just like a nervous thing. Why are you nervous? And I'm like, no, it's like a nervous thing that like, it just happens. It's not anything intentional. She just tells me they're pretty much gonna need me more because of them separating. And she's like, is that gonna be okay? This isn't something permanent because we are going to work on it. And she's like, ojalá, which really means like, with God's will, we are going to work this out. And I'm like, yeah, like, oh yeah, like for sure. Like, I think it will work out. So she's telling me I'm gonna need to go over a little bit more of, you know, stay a little bit later, and that they have that room made up for me. And so I'm like, that's why the room was made up for me. Not because they felt bad, but because they were separating. And now it all makes sense. So I just continued just to sit there and kind of like trying like not to smile, but zoning out, listening, like pilot mode. I don't know how to explain it to you, but I still do this when I'm just like uncomfortable. I'll kind of just go like on pilot mode and my brain is just like, so she tells me like, I need this done. I need the pantry reorganized. There's something that we have to donate to this family that's in need, and just tell me that she's gonna get a box of goodies from like here, and we're gonna, you know, just be organizing and doing good things today and kind of just like get good karma going. And I'm like, okay, like, okay, got you. So like, I already know what to do. So before I go downstairs, she asks me where's Sam at, and like doesn't ask me like nicely. She like has an attitude the whole time. And now I'm trying to be like, okay, more understanding, because I'm like, she is heartbroken, probably gonna be extra bitchy with me, and now I can at least chalk it up and be like, this is why, right? I tell her, I'm like, oh, I don't know, as soon as I got here, she told me to let you know that she was gonna be outside, and she's like, and why didn't you tell me? And I was like, well, I'm sorry, like we got caught up talking. And she's like, oh, you couldn't just tell me? She's like, she probably already left. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna start cleaning. And so right away I make my way towards the pantry, and there was a lot of stuff there. Like, it seemed like no one had been using up anything that was in there, and things were just getting stuffed in there. So it was a pretty like decent size, so they were just probably just stuffing everything in there. So I had to like start categorizing things and, you know, situating things. As I'm situating things, I can hear Mrs. Peach calling and yelling at Sam that she better get back and that she better not start up. Just because I'm back and stuff doesn't mean that she's not going to be helping out, and just kind of just going like off on her. And so I'm listening and cleaning at the same time, because you know how sometimes when you're being chismosa, you don't make as much noise. You're like trying to listen so the person gets quiet too, because they know that you're listening. Well, it was becoming that. I was still trying to move things around by like listening with my ear. What else been there? Anyways, so I start organizing things, and Voldemort comes down and she tells me that to not be a stranger, that if I needed someone to talk to, that she would be there. And I'm like, I don't need anyone to talk to. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, about what? And I'm like thinking, not even thinking all the way, like, oh, she's probably talking about like my mom or something. But no, she was talking about, because I guess there was this rumor going around that I had got dumped by the rich kid. And so I'm like, about what? And she's like, you don't have to pretend with me. And I just look at her, I just tell her, okay, because I'm not even trying to continue this combo. I'm just trying to end it. Don't talk to me no more. Like, we don't need to talk. The less that we talk, the better. And so I just tell her, okay. And she's like, don't shut me up. Don't shut me up. And I tell her, like, I'm not. She's like, yes, you are. And I'm like, okay. And I go like that, okay. And then she's like, what did I just say? And I'm like, not to shut you up. And she's like, so why are you doing it? And I'm like, I'm not. Yes, you are. Okay. And she gets annoyed, grabs a snack that I'm grabbing from my hand that I'm organizing, grabs it, and just walks away. And I kind of just like chuckle to myself, because in a weird way, I'm like, we're back. Like, things are back to how they normally are, you know? Ew, I look like a freaking chicken. So I want to say I spent like a good minute cleaning that freaking pantry and organizing everything. So I'm organizing everything, checking my phone here and there. Joe was still texting me like, hey, can we talk? I was still leaving him on red. I wasn't even ready to talk to him. There was no reason to talk to him. It had just like, for what? It wasn't going to make things better. I wasn't going to go back and forth with a whole other person, and it just, no. And especially now hearing this rumor, I was just so over it. I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't need this. If I'm already having so many regrets, I don't even want to pursue this anymore, because it's just not going to stop. And I'm just going to look like, oh, the maid who fell in love with the rich kid. And I don't need that, okay? I'm just cleaning up, and I hear Sam come through the door. Sam comes through the door, and as soon as she steps foot inside, boom, with the quickness, Mrs. Peach is downstairs, tearing her a new one, asking her why does she think that she can just come and go whenever she please, and that just because what's going on doesn't mean she could take advantage of the situation. And I'm like, tell her, you know, I just got there. I don't know all the achievement, but I'm like, tell her anyways. Tell her again. So she's just yelling at her. They're having a scream match back and forth, and pretty much saying that she doesn't even want to be there, reading her for filth. And she's telling her, you know why you can't stay with him. Why not? Because you want to control the situation. That's why he's not here. Halloween makeup is definitely different than freaking everyday makeup, I swear. So after she goes upstairs, slam the door, Mrs. Peach comes and starts to sort of help me out. And she starts telling me that she just doesn't know what to do anymore, that she's taking it hard too. because of the whole situation, that she doesn't know if I know. And I'm like, no, like, te lo juro, like, I don't know anything that's been going on. She's like telling me that she's actually surprised because that she confided in Mrs. Bubbles about it. And I was like, oh yeah, like, no, like, she hasn't told me anything. And she's like, you know, that's good. That's good that she knows that she can at least have, you know, her secrets kept with her. And I'm like, yeah. So she asks me if I can please stay the night, and that as soon as I wake up, I can continue to help her with what needs to be done. I tell her that I won't be able to stay the night, but I can definitely stay a little bit later to help her out. And she's like, no, that's not gonna work, Alexis. Like, I need you to stay so that when you wake up in the morning, you can just help me and we can just get it done, everything that we need to. And I really wanted to help her, you know. I could have stayed the night, but I was like, no, like, I don't want to do things that are going to fit on her schedule. I don't want to be waking up and just start going to town and get it done because she wants it done. She didn't say she was gonna pay me more. She didn't say any of that. And I was just like, I didn't want to. So I tell her that my mom won't let me. And then she throws a dig at me and she's like, oh, like, your mom cares now? I just looked at her and I didn't even let her know that it affected me or, you know, and get up like I should have, all mad. I just looked at her and I just told her I just can't. And she's like, okay, well, do whatever you can and then leave. And gets upset and gets up from helping me and goes somewhere else. I should have just left a sick way. I was like, no, they need me. Like, very toxic way. I thought, like, oh, they need me. They didn't need me. I could have been replaced. They just couldn't find someone that was going to tolerate what I did for the amount that they paid me. That's what the truth was. Not because I kept their secrets, not because I knew too much, not because any of that. Not because they were holding my job until I got back. Ooh, none of that. It's because I tolerated way more than anybody else would. So I finished up as much as I could and I get my phone. I text my mom and she's on her way to come get me. As I'm outside waiting, because I don't want to be inside waiting, because I don't want to deal with anything. I don't want her to come back down and talk to me, any of it. I was just so, like, disgusted with her last comment and just disgusted with myself that I kept surrounding myself around people. And I was like, you know what, this is why I get treated like this, is because I tolerated and just, like, in my head fighting with myself. As I'm waiting outside, I hear a car park and I don't even think, like, it could be anybody. I was like, oh, it's the neighbor or something like that, you know. But no, it was Mr. Peach. And he sees me waiting and he's kind of, like, surprised. He's like, oh, hey, Alexis. And I was like, oh, hi, Mr. Peach. And he's like, leaving so soon? And I kind of laugh, you know, but I don't know why I started to explain. I'm like, no, I've been here all day, this and that. And he's like, oh, okay, great. Hey, don't give a damn. So he starts to go inside and asks me if I want to wait inside. He's like, or does she want you to wait out here? Kind of just looking at my face like if I was going to say yes, you know? And I was like, no, I just wanted to come out here. I just wanted to wait out here. He's like, okay, well, have a good night. I'm like, same to you. As soon as he goes inside, it's automatic chaos. You can hear screaming of, what the are you doing here? Screaming. And you can hear Mr. Peach and you can hear Mrs. Peach. You can hear Sam intervening and she's screaming and she's fighting to not yell at him, to not tell him anything. And so I'm just sitting outside like this, like. So my mom finally arrives, and as my mom's picking me up, I see Mr. Peach coming out with a few bags. We just take off. My mom's like, oh, what's happening? I'm like, I don't know. I didn't want to give her any detail about it either, because I didn't even know that much. I didn't want to sit there and him haw about something that I had no idea about. So as we're driving, I get a text message, and it's from Mrs. Peach asking if there's any way I can come in super early, that she'll even pick me up, that she needs me to come in because there's something that important that she needs to talk to me about. I'm like, okay. So as we're going home and I'm showering and getting ready for a new day tomorrow, I get a text message and it's from Joe, and he's asking me if I can talk to him and that he needs to see me and let me know what's been going on, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, nope, I don't want to talk to you. I've heard this little rumor going around saying that you broke my heart and that can be farther from the truth. I don't care about you. And just being really mean because I was so annoyed. Like, I didn't want them thinking that I was just some young girl trying to get with the rich kid, like take advantage of the situation, because I wasn't, you know? So I tell him no, and I just leave it at that. I get a message from Bubbles as well, and I'm like, oh heck no, he's messaging me off his mama's phone. So I go and check, and it's Mrs. Bubbles, and she's asking me if we can maybe have coffee tomorrow and that she missed seeing my face. And I'm like, oh yeah, let's do that, because I hadn't seen her and I was like, I do miss her. I text her and I lay down and I get ready for the new day. I wake up and there's some drama that my mom is having with her friend, and I don't even really get that much into it. When my mom is pissed, my mom goes to like 100. There's no talking to her, and if you try to talk to her about it, it's you against everybody. You and everybody are against her. So I try really hard to not get into it when my mom's arguing with family or anybody, because it is, you're against me, you agree with them, and I didn't want to have to go through that and deal with that morning. I honestly didn't. I just tell my mom, I'm gonna go, got work. She tells me, you know, a little bit of like, oh no, like you're not gonna be doing that anymore. She's on these kicks of, we're not doing that anymore. We should be, she's going through a cycle. When she's on these episodes of bipolar, she thinks like we all of a sudden become like super wealthy and rich and like people deserve to pay us. And she gets on that kind of kick. And I'm like, okay, mom, okay. And she's like, don't just be saying whatever just so I just shut the F up. And I'm like, nope, that's not what I'm saying it. Like, I hear you, but like, I want to go. And she's like, okay, just leave, just get F out. So she's all mad. So I'm already going to work thinking like, oh my gosh, what's gonna happen? She's probably gonna get into trouble. She's probably gonna do something that she's not supposed to do, and she's gonna end up in jail. So that was my concern of, she's gonna end up in jail. I'm gonna have to figure out what to do, all of that. So I start talking to my brother, texting him, checking in with him, like, hey, what's going on? What are you guys doing? That sort of thing. And then I message my grandma to like let her know like, hey, something's going on with mom. You need to check on her. That sort of thing. My grandma just kind of chewing me out too, saying like, her not wanting to listen to me, I think because like she just probably thought like I was just being like a little mocosa and I was just fighting with my mom, because who knows what my mom was telling her. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not gonna even deal with it. I can't even focus on my face. So I arrive and I am ready to go. It is not too early and it's not too late. It is afternoon. So I get in there and Mrs. Peach is like in the worst mood possible. And I know she's in a bad mood because I'm helping her. So I'm like, okay. She's in a bad mood. So I get there and I start helping as much as I can. And she tells me and stuff like, I told you that I needed you here really early. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I can't, you know, just come and go as I please. Like my mom, she's like, right. She all of a sudden gives a shit. And I'm like, and Baltimore is like, hey, like tells her like, you know, like what the, like, hey, like tells her. And she looks at her, Mrs. Peach looks at her, and she's like, hey, what? Now all of a sudden that she wants to be mother of the year. And I'm like, whoa, like no one, like, get traes. Like I did, like, what's wrong with you? Because she was throwing like low jobs where it was like, it wasn't needed. No one asked for it. Like, what are you doing? She just looks at me like surprised that I even said anything. But I don't, there's times where I stay quiet because I'm like, okay, whatever. And there's a lot of times where I'm like, most of the time I'm gonna be like, you got me up. Like, no, we're not gonna do that. She like tells me like, oh, nothing, just, you know, you want to be out, you know, doing whatever you want. And then when I tell you that I need help, all of a sudden that your mom, she's like real perfect now, huh? I wanted to call her a freaking filthy mudblood, but I was like, I didn't know what to say. I was just kind of like in shock that like we were even having this sort of argument, discussion, whatever you want to call it, about my mom. It just felt really weird where I'm like, okay. So I just start helping her out, and Baltimore is just looking at her like bring it down, bitch. Like, I look so weird and gross. So she's just looking at her, kind of telling her like, you know, ponte los pilas, like, you know, bring it down. And she tells me to go upstairs to get something out of the room. So I'm like, okay. And as I'm getting up, I'm using my hands to like get up with my knees and stuff and kind of dusting my hands off. I go. And then she's like, you know, look, she's just taking her time doing everything. You want to tell her that? Like, you know, she's walking all slow. Like, I don't know what she thinks just because, you know, she went over there for a little bit. She got a little bit of taste of that. And now she thinks that she can bring it here. Like, not here. And Voldemort is telling her like, hey, like, relájate. Like, you're just like, I don't know, like, why you're so upset with her. Like, she's really not doing anything. Like, I don't even like her either, but like, she's really not doing anything. And I can hear right there as I'm going upstairs, and I'm like, yo, like, what the fuck? Like, what are you doing here, Lex? Like, you know, like, let's go. Because obviously she already is like having some like built up animosity towards you. Like, let's go. So as I'm fighting in my head, kind of just stuck right there, Sam's walking down and she's like, yeah, it's been like nonstop talking about you since you weren't here when you're supposed to be. They feel some way. And I'm like, why? Like, I don't understand. She's like, what do you mean why? She's like, because you went over there with the other family. It's kind of like a betrayal thing. Like, you wouldn't know about loyalty. And I laugh because I'm like, oof, bitch. Oof. The one to tell me about loyalty, like, really? So I look at her and I'm laughing, clenching my pearls, clenching my freaking Voldemort pelos. And I'm like, really, Sam? And she's like, yeah, really. And it's pretty funny when the people that shouldn't be telling you anything are the ones to be telling you the most. I swear, people get comfortable real quick. I hadn't even been back a full week, and yeah, she's already comfortable. I see. So I'm like, okay. Because I let people think that they can be comfortable, and even now, I always say even now too, right away. I let people feel comfortable right away. And it's just, I don't know what it is about me, but I guess I just do it. I don't know what it is or what. I laugh and I'm like, you know what, Sam? It's just funny because no one ever says it to my face. Nobody. Nadie. And then she laughs and she's like, yeah, we don't, because then you go crying and then you go gossiping to everybody else and then you want to, you know, say this and you want to say that, and just poor you, the little orphan, poor you. And when she says the little orphan, it just clicked in my head of the ex's mother, and I freaking just go, doof. You know, push her really hard, and she just sits there in the steps and she just laughs. And I'm like, damn, was I really like not hard enough? She just really not care. Like, what the heck? Like, what's going on? So I just walked past her. I really thought she was gonna grab my ankle or something and like freaking yank me, but she didn't. So I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, what the fuck? So I go upstairs and I get what I needed and I go back downstairs. And as I'm going downstairs, Mrs. Peach lays it out to me. She's like, you couldn't have taken any longer, huh? She's like, so what, now you just decide when you want to come and when you want to do this, when you want to do that, and on your time, huh? Because like, we're here on your time, huh? And Voldemort is looking at me, looking at her, and we're just like she's losing it. Like, she's really like, she's losing it. So I'm like, okay. So I give her what she needed and we just continue. And then she tells me, get this box ready. We're getting it ready. We're putting like food in there. We're putting like extra stuff in there and just getting it all ready. Okay. And Voldemort is telling me that I'm going to need to go with her. And right away I just look at her and I'm like, oh my God. Okay, here we go. That I'm going to have to go with her. And I'm like, great. I don't want to go with her anywhere. And Mrs. Peach is like, yeah, like, don't make that face. And I'm like, damn, like, was I making a face? So she's getting the little box ready. Well, it's not even a little box. It was a big box. Getting the box ready. And we're like, okay, get ready. Like, you're going to leave already. Hurry up. So I just wait in the car, put my seatbelt on, and I'm like, dang, like, what the fuck? As soon as I'm going to look at my phone, Voldemort gets in the car and she looks at me. And then she's like, it doesn't help that you're being a little bitch. And I'm looking around because I'm like, who the fuck are you talking to? And I'm like, who? She's like, you. It doesn't help that you're being a little bitch. And like says it again. And I'm like, God, that just doesn't like have a nice ring to it. And I'm like, excuse me? And then she's like, yeah. I'm like, me? I'm being a bitch? Out of everybody in this house, I'm the bitch? And then she's like, hey, yeah. Like, tell me, like, hey, she'll relax. And I'm like, no, like, I'm not a bitch at all. Like, if anything, I'm giving you guys the same attitude, but And she's like, yeah, she's like, she's having a hard time. Her husband's leaving her, this and this and this, like telling me things I didn't need to know. And so I'm just like looking out the window like this, and I'm like, okay. And she's backing up and kind of does it like aggressively, like where my head smacks back on the seat. And so I'm just like, you know, whatever. I'm going on my phone, and Scarlett's texting me like, hey, we need to talk. Like, it's not what you think. Like, please forgive me. Like, it's because like you've been acting different. And I'm like, am I acting different, or am I just giving everybody like a little dose of their medicine? Because everyone is quick to freaking talk smack to you, but as soon as you give them a little dose of like beach back to them, everyone wants to be like, you're being so mean to me. Oh my god, this. And it's not. It's like, I'm just giving you what you're giving me. You're just not used to it. You're just used to me being a punching bag. And then all of a sudden, when I give you the same energy, like, oh, she's acting different. Oh, she thinks she's too good. No, bitch. I'm just giving you a dose of Alexis. But you just don't like it, right? So we're driving, and we're going to like a really like nice like area that has like these really nice condos. And I'm like, is this for the family that like that's in need? You know, because we have the box of like food from the pantry, and we have like another box, but I didn't get to see what was in the box. So she's like, yeah, sure. You know, like whatever, not even really paying attention. I'm like, whatever, man. Like, I don't even care. This family's so freaking toxic. I swear to God. So we get to this really nice townhouse, and I'm like, okay, look, this looks pretty nice, you know? Like, you know, just because they have like nice things doesn't mean like they're not necessarily hurting, you know? So I'm like over here having a whole freaking combo in my head, like, oh, this is a nice place. Like, hopefully I can have something like this when I, you know, get older. Like, oh, this would be nice. Like, I like that porch. I like this. Oh, I like that. I don't know about you guys, but I would always do that. Like, anytime I seen something, I was like, oh my God, that would be perfect. I can't wait, you know, until this, or I can't wait until that. Like, I swear I had so many pictures in my phone of things. I even do that now. Like if I like a certain setup or anything, like when we go to IKEA especially, if I like something, I have it in my phone. Like, it's pictured, it's saved. I'm going to be using that as a reference. I'm going to be using that as my inspiration, whatever it might be, right? So we get to the place, and I'm like, oh, I recognize that car. This is Mr. Peach's place. This is Mr. Peach's place. This is Mr. Peach's place. And I look at her, okay? Because she a little huge. She a little huge. She a little huge. I look at her, and before we were getting there, like up into like the spot, she's like putting on her lip gloss and stuff. And I'm like, so as soon as she sees that I see his car, I look at her and I put my head back like, oh man, like you're such a snake. So she gets out of the car, and she's like, don't start, don't start. And so she's picking up the cans, and she is walking up to the door, and she's like kicking it with her heel and stuff. And so she has to hold it like this and like bang on it. And as soon as he comes to the door, he opens it, and she like just pushes the cans in there, okay? Now, I'm not gonna even exaggerate. Let's just say we got there at 11, okay? 11 a.m. She didn't come back out until like 11:45, okay? I was just in there waiting. And I was like, should I get out? Should I knock? No. Should I close the trunk because she left the trunk open? I'm like, no. Like, I was just going through like my own thing in my head. Like, should I do this? Should I do that? No. Like, should I not? Like, what the heck? Like, what the heck are they doing in there that long? Like, they could just be talking. Like, I'm overthinking it. I'm like, nah, she getting it. Like, she has to be getting it. Like, this is a long freaking time. So I even rolled down the window to see if I could even hear anything. Around that time, Mrs. Peach is messaging me, and she's like, where the hell are you guys? Like, mad with like exclamation points. Hello. Like, dang, at least give me a minute to at least respond. A minute or two. Like, give me something. Like, how are you just gonna be like ding 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 like right away? So I was like, yeah, we're still here. And she's like, doing what? And I told her, I'm in the car. That's it. Like, why should it be up to me to like come up with a story or whatever? Like, we ain't friends. We ain't homies. You ain't my home skillet biscuit. Like, what the heck? So she tells me like, really? And I say, yes. Take a picture. Okay. I take the picture like that. She can see she doesn't respond at all. Within that time of me messaging her that, she's already coming back to the car. Okay, it's 11:45. She's already coming to the car, back to the car, and she's like just fixing her hair, like not a dramatic way too, like trying to like, you know how like when you're watching movies and like they're coming out and they're like fixing their chichis and everything, not like that, like in a way of just like fixing her hair, coming to get the other box, and then she sees that the window's down, and she's like, you couldn't have helped, you can't help, you couldn't have brought this box in. And I look at her, just kind of like smile, like it's like. And I just like, you know, just look like that. She's like, what? Why are you looking at me like that? I swear, you're like always judging or something. What? Why are you looking at me like that? Like, get off and come help. Come on. I'm like, okay. And so as I'm getting off to come help, she like closes the door. She's like, no, just forget it. I had to ask. I'm like, okay. I know that whole like manipulation tactic, whatever. Like, come on. Like, I grew up with my mom. My mom would do that manipulation bullshit all the time. Reverse psychology. My mom was a pro at it, and I would fall for it time and time. So like when I knew when other adults were trying to do it with me, ding, I already got it. Like, have you met my mother? So when she got closed the door, I just laughed, and I just kind of kicked back. I'm like, dude, whatever. Like, this is so grimy. You're so dirty, like so dirty. Tell me why when she took that box, she didn't take longer than like 5 minutes. So she comes back out, or we're in the car. She's like putting back on her lip gloss. She's like spraying something. I'm like, why are you spraying anything? Like, it doesn't sneak in here. And she's like, yeah, it does. It smells like sweat. And like kind of trying to make me feel like insecure, like if I made the car stink. And I'm like, okay, like I know for damn sure it ain't me. So I'm like, okay, whatever. And she's like, are you hungry? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, okay, what do you want? I was like, I don't know. She's like, you're hungry, but you don't know what you want. Like so passive aggressive. And I'm like, I don't know, like, what do you want? She's like, I'm asking you, I'm not hungry. I'm like, are you sure? And then she looks at me, she's like, what's that supposed to mean? And I was like, I don't know, you didn't work up an appetite? And she's like, doing what, huh? She's like, dime, say it. Like, and I'm like taking the cans in, and I don't know, putting the cans away, I don't know, like, you know, trying to be funny, but at the same time not saying a lot, because like she was grown, I could get my ass beat, you know? She's like, no, I'm not. And I'm like, okay. So we stop at a Wendy's. We get some food. She asks me like, what do you want? I'm like, just a bacon cheeseburger. She's like, you want a meal? And I'm like, sure. Like, I always say sure when it's like, I don't freaking know. Like, I don't know. Like, I didn't want to overstep in that way either. Like, even though as I'm reading this, I did nothing wrong. Everything that I did, it was not wrong. I would always still feel like, oh, it's like my fault. Don't order this, don't order that. Like, it wasn't my fault. Okay, these were just grimy ass adults doing things that like people think like, oh my god, like that only happens in novelas. Where do you think they get inspiration from? Real life shit. People are like, oh no, that's too crazy. What are you talking about? Like when I watched Shameless, I related to that show so freaking much. Like my mom was the one to introduce me to Shameless, and she had the nerve to get upset at some parts when me and my brothers were like, mom, relatable AF. Mom, she would get so freaking pissed and be like, are you guys serious? Are you guys serious? And get like really mad. But it's like, dude, like, yes, like this is like, oh my gosh. And when I read and I reminisce on so many of the grimy things, I'm like, people still do this, but they do it in other ways. Like people still, you know, do this and are dirty and grimy in this way, but like in other ways, it's just so freaking sick and twisted. Anyway, so we get our food, we park, and we're eating. And it's just like an awkward kind of like convo that we have. Just pretty much about Sam and how she's such a little pain in the ass and it's so hard and that she doesn't know what to do with her. And I didn't comment anything when it came to Sam because it's none of my business. And I kept thinking about how I pushed her so hard and how I didn't get a reaction. And I was just kind of like, what the fuck? Like, what the heck? Like, what is she up to? Like, should I push her? Shouldn't I have not pushed her? Like, I'm over here like contemplating my own head as she's talking about like, oh, this, and she's just been so, and then like, since you haven't been here, you know, doing your job because supposedly you're going through your own thing, but we all know that you're just, you know, using it as an excuse. And I'm just like letting her talk, and I'm like, okay, whatever. So pretty much that Sam has just been reckless and has been doing whatever she wants. And since the whole separation, that it's just been getting a little bit wild. And I'm like, this separation hasn't been happening for a long time. I'm like, how long has this been in the works? Like, how come he has that that apartment so quickly. Like, doesn't it take time to get an apartment? Like, doesn't it take like a couple like months or like, I don't know. I'm a child. I don't know any of this. And she looks at me and she's like, Alexis, it's best to not know so much. And so I'm like, okay. She's like, the less you know, the better. I'm like, okay. Like, it's true. It's none of my business. Like, why should I know, right? I just remain quiet. We're on our way. Now let's say it's like 2:30, okay? It's super late from the time we left. So we get there and I still have like some leftover like fries that I got, right? And I still have my Wendy's drinks because I'm trying to savor this. I don't know how people can freaking drink and just like drink it all in one gulp. I hate sharing with my husband and I hate sharing with my brother because they literally like take a drink and it's like half the thing. Like, I know they fill it up with half of the ice, but like, oh my gosh, I savor every single drip of my drinks. Anyways, so I go in, I still have my drink and we set it down and I just start to like wash the dishes because there's dishes piled up already. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get to it. I don't need to really be told like what there needs to be done. But when I do ask, like, is there a certain task do you want me to do first? I ask. But if I see it, I just do it. You know what I'm saying? So anyways, I start doing the dishes and I'm like, okay. I hear Mrs. Peaches come down and she's like, are you guys back already? And Baltimore wants to be a little funny, like, oh no, like, we're not here, like, who could it be? Like, it's not, no, we're not, like, trying to be funny, okay? And she goes to the restroom right away, like, after that. And then Mrs. Peach comes down and she's like, oh, so you guys went out to eat too, huh? And I'm like, oh yeah, like, after she was, you know, done giving him the boxes and stuff, like, she asked me if I was hungry, and I said, sure, and we got this. And then, you know, I'm telling her, like, the stuff right there, and I'm, like, still washing the dishes, and then she's like, so estás comiendo, like, I'm paying you to eat. And I'm like, you don't have to pay me for the 30 minutes. Like, she's like, it was longer than 30 minutes. I was like, okay, well, that wasn't my fault. That's not my problem. Like, and I didn't mean to come off rude, but it really wasn't my problem. Like, you sent me to go do something, and I went with the person you sent me with. Not my problem. Right? Or am I wrong? Baltimore comes out and she's like, ay, ¿por qué estás chingando? Like, telling her, like, oh, like, what the, why are you bitching already? And she's like, me chingando? She's like, I told you to go do it because it was gonna be harder for me to do it. How come you just couldn't come and go? And she's like, oh, you already know how he is with all the whining and this and that. And then she's like, I was in and out and that's it. And she's like, no, cierto, no me mientas. Like, don't lie to me. Like, that's not true. And she's like, ¿cómo sabes? And as she's fixing her pants, she looks over at me and I know she just, in her brain, just probably like, what did you do? You know? She's like, Alexis texted me and she sent me the picture of like when I asked her what time. And she looks at me and she's like, she's being dramatic. She's like, it's not dramatica. She's like, that's not even the time. And I'm just like quiet, letting them hash it out. Cause I'm like, I'm not gonna even try and get in a grown ass women fight and be like, you lie, you a lie, you was over there, your lie, your lie. So they're just going back and forth and she's like telling her like, I was just helping him put away the stuff at the pantry. Peach is like, why you gotta help him? Like, you're doing too much. She's like, I knew I shouldn't have told you to do it. She's like, oh, like, this is why, this is why. So they start fighting and they're going off in Spanish. And I'm just like literally just sitting there washing the freaking cups. And I guess I washed the cup a little bit too aggressively and it freaking shatters in my hand. I cut right here and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm cleaning it under the water and stuff. And I'm like, I need a band-aid. Can someone give me a band-aid? So that kind of breaks up the fight. Okay, I don't know if the bruja did it with her ojos or what, but I started bleeding. So Peaches comes over and she's like, oh, Alexis, like, you need to be careful, and like starts wrapping it up and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, like, it was pretty deep. Like, it burned. Like, you know those cuts where it's like the little ones hurt the most, but like this one was big and it like, it hurt. Like, I was scared. So she starts wrapping it up and it doesn't bleed for long. And Baltimore just leaves. We hear the front door leave and I'm like, what the fuck? And so I make a joke, which I shouldn't have. And I'm like, is she gonna go take more boxes? And as she's wrapping up my hand, she's like, really? And I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what was wrong with me. Or just like, I'm sorry. And so she just takes off and she just like goes somewhere else in the house and just leaves. And Sam comes over and she's like, so how long were you there? And I'm like, oh my God, Sam, I'm not gonna report to you. Like, if I have to report to Mrs. Peach, I'm not gonna see her and take my time and do it with you. And she's like, whatever. She's like, you know what you're doing. I was like, and you know what you're doing. And then she's like, what am I doing? And I was like, I don't know, you tell me. And so we were kind of just like bickering a little bit back and forth. And she's like, so are you gonna help out with the project? And I was like, what project are you talking about? And then she's like, they're doing like a little fundraiser thing. And I'm like, oh, I don't know, I haven't been asked. And she's like, well, if you play your cards right, maybe you can, and then maybe you can get more businesses and you can meet another Bubbles, and walks off. And I'm like, okay. 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 So Mrs. Peach was getting the kids ready, and she told me that I was gonna go over and help with Mr. Peach. So I'm gonna watch the kids over there. So they were literally going to be putting me here and there, going bing, 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 bing. And the whole time I kept thinking, am I gonna get paid more? The whole time. I was just like, because this is not the situation that like I was told that I'm going to be doing, right? Like, how does that make sense to be binging me back and forth? Like, how is this? And another thought that came into my mind, I don't want to be alone with that man. I don't want to be alone. Like, is Sam gonna go? So as she's getting them ready, I'm like, Sam's coming, right? And that's what I said. And Sam was like, you don't need me to hold your hand. And I'm like, yeah, but that's another grown man and I don't want to be alone. And Mrs. Peach looks up at me and kind of just like looks at my eyes, like kind of like a worried face. And I look at her, giving back my worried face, like, I said what I said. And she's like, yeah, you're not gonna be alone. Of course not. And I'm like, okay, qué bueno. Like, you know, okay, good. And so Sam was like, you know, putting on his shoes. She's like, I was gonna go, you dumbass. And I look at her because I'm like, okay. So she called me dumbass. I'm like, okay. All right. So as we're getting ready, Peaches gets us in the car. And she starts driving and she's telling me like, hey, there's going to be a fundraiser. I need to know right now if you can help me. It's either a yes or a no. Again, with the passive aggressive bull. And I'm like, okay, yeah. And then she's like, are you sure? Because it's a 2-day thing and we're going to have to drive a little bit far out. Like, it's something that you're going to have to spend the night for. Yes or no? Driving like that. And I'm like, okay, yeah. Like, I was just like, I wanted to do it because I'm like, okay, maybe it'll be more money. Maybe I can like make other babysitting jobs. Like, I'm like thinking like, okay. Because in this time, like I had mentioned before in previous story times, I wanted to save up money to see if I can like either go down and be with my cousins in Texas or like be out there. Okay, so I was like, okay, yeah, like I'm over here thinking like I'm going to like make some like grown ass decisions and be like, I'm going to move. Okay, she drops us off Mr. Peach's condo and we see that Baltimore's already there, but she's outside. Thank goodness she's outside. I mean, I don't know if they like, it was like, hey, we're gonna go over there or like what, but she's outside and she has like some other stuff that she's like getting out of the car, right? And it was like, oh, the whole time my banta was hurting for Mrs. Peach because I was like, that would have been so horrible if we would have like walked in on something. And I was like, this is her plan too, because she probably wanted to see where freaking Baltimore went. She wanted to see what was going on, or who knows, maybe she was trying to catch her. And I'm like, oh my God. So we get off, we get the kids off, and we start walking inside. And Baltimore and Mrs. Peach don't even talk to each other. Like, it's not even, why are you here? They don't even talk to each other. As we get in there, Mr. Peach, he's wearing like a white tee, he's wearing his basketball shorts, he's wearing his shoes, and he has his hair slicked back, and he's looking like, you know, like, I don't know, maybe a little sweaty, maybe, I don't know. So we get there and Mrs. Peach is kind of like, why is she here? And he's like, oh, she's helping me like with the rest of the stuff. Like, don't start. Like, starting to tell her. And he's like, I don't want to start. Like, we could do that over there, but not over here. Like, he's like pretty much saying like, we could do that at church house, but not at my house. And so he tells her like that she didn't need to come inside, that she could have just let the kids outside. And so it gets kind of awkward and she just leaves. And she kind of looks like, you know how like when you look like you want to cry? Like, she looks like she wants to cry. So I'm like, awkward. So she leaves. It's just me, Sam, the kids, Mr. Peach, and Baltimore outside. And he's like, so Alexis, did she go over what's going to be happening? So I'm going to end that there. My nose is running, you guys. I hope that this freaking costume came out a little bit good. This is my second time. I don't know. The ones who can achieve the freaking Baltimore look, bravo, because it is a freaking pain in the butt. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's story time. Please make sure to give me a big thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Please leave a comment down below. And I'll have the new story time out shortly. Thank you guys so much for all your guys' love and support. Te quiero mucho. Besos a todos. I really appreciate you guys so much. If you guys want to keep updated with me on my other social medias, I'm very active on my Instagram. Make sure to check out my Instagram. And I post on my Facebook and my Snapchat. I love you guys so much. Oh, I uploaded a new vlog. So if you guys want to see more of me and see my babies, my family, I currently have a vlog of when we went to Texas. So if you guys want to see more of that life and another part of me, I do have a new vlog. Make sure to check it out. I will leave it right here so you guys can check it out, and I'll see you guys in my next story time. Bye. Does it look kind of freaky?